Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. You join us on the back of what has become a routine victory at Old Trafford. Yes, Michael, I can see your comment already. This is going to be a podcast full of positivity after what has been a fantastic last few days for the club. But before we dive into our match analysis for the Man U game, let's see who we've got on the show tonight. Welcome, Joe. Joe, my friend, how are you?
Hello, Tom. Yes, I am feeling very, very good, very, very positive, Michael, as I'm sure you're very happy to hear. I've been invited to go on BBC 5 again tomorrow morning, Tom. So get that plug in. But yeah, no, feeling good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, buddy. Always good to chat after a win. What time is BBC Five live tomorrow, Joe? Just so our listeners can tune in if they are up in
That's
that
a
time.
very good question. It is at 10 to 8, so not
10.
too early.
No. I remember I chatted to them once, and I had to get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, which
Yeah, they normally do it on the very, very early hours,
yeah,
but clearly
it's
they
pretty
want to.
much. I mean, we're digressing completely. I mean, I'm up at 6 a.m. most of the time anyway, but going on national radio and talking it at 6 a.m. when you've only just woken up, a bit bleary eyed. Yeah, but as I say, so there you go, guys. Tune in tomorrow morning to BBC Radio 5 Live, where Joe is going to be chatting about today's victory. We also welcome Geordie back to the podcast. Geordie, my friend, great to have you on this evening. How are you?
We are excited about last result today.
Yeah, big result. We've spoken on this podcast over the last couple of weeks about results sort of not reflecting sometimes how well we played. But this last week has been superb for the club. Of course, all started last weekend with a victory over Norwich in the FA Cup. And they say winning is a habit because we've just hit 3 in a row. 1 in the cup, 2 in the league. So let's dive in. Keep your comments coming as well. It's great to see so many of you join us this evening. You know, as many have already said, the pivot in midfield is unreal between Ayari and Baleba. Can't get much better than that. You guys are better than Man United, but not anywhere near the usual standard that you've set for yourself. That's a really interesting point. I'm going to save that and we'll talk about that because in the first half, I would definitely agree with you. But no, let's start off, Joe, with my first contentious point of the day. Starting 11, which saw some much needed sort of refreshment. We spoke in the week about Adingra perhaps not being effective on the right. He was replaced by Minter in the starting 11. Welbeck started the game for the injured Matt O'Reilly, who didn't even make the bench due to an injury he picked up against Ipswich. But the one that really ground my gears, Joe, was Lewis Dunk. And I can't quite believe I'm saying that. I think Webster has been putting in some really good performances over the last little stretch that he's been involved. And I felt it was really harsh to drop Adam Webster after the Ipswich game because I just don't feel like he deserved to be dropped. It'd be interesting to see whether that. Well, we probably will never know. Would be interesting to know whether that was due to any concerns about fitness, or if it was simply because Lewis Dunk is the club captain. How did you feel when you saw Dunk returning at the expense of Adam Webster?
I think the boring answer, Tom, is that it's again, played Thursday, play Sunday, and we mentioned about Adam Webster's injury record on the last podcast that maybe he was feeling something a little bit, and Fabian Hertz don't want to risk him. Obviously, I think the sensible answer is that obviously yes, it's our club captain, and if he's fit enough to start, he will start. So yeah. It's just one of those things, I think. But yeah, really annoying when, if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. And especially a centre-back pairing, we all know how important it is to have, solidarity in that area between your goalkeeper and your two centre-back pair. So yeah, a bit frustrating, but again, It's Lewis Dunk. You always hope that he's going to hit the levels that we know that he can hit. It's been frustrating this season. He not quite where we want him to be, but I think he did all right, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he did, to be fair to him. I think, Michael, you've said that in the comments there. It was harsh on Adam, but Lewis did play well. And I'm not, I suppose, with the benefit of hindsight, Dunk did put in a stalwart performance. It was very good. No major complaints from me. But yeah, just felt a tad harsh on Webster. But, with Adam Webster's injury record, maybe, as you say, Thursday, Sunday might have been a bit too soon. Geordie, some other exciting news was Diego Gomez made his first bench appearance. Obviously, he came on a bit later in the game, but it was nice to see the new boy get a spot on the bench.
Yeah, totally right. Few minutes for him. Difficult to try to value his performance or rate his performance, but yeah, all people that has saw him in Paraguay knows his level. Also, when he was with in Messi's team in MLS, he makes some outstanding performances. So glad to hear that, and with huge expectations.
Yeah, I think we can expect quite a lot from him in the future. As you say, it's a bit hard to sort of judge him on the very brief cameo he did have. But yeah, it's really positive to see him on the bench, because I think, Joe, we expect to see him slightly earlier, slightly sooner, maybe against Norwich or Ipswich. It just didn't happen, did it?
There was a little flash of maybe what we can expect from Diego Gomez. Quite progressive, quite quick, wants to link up with the attacking play. So I think he's definitely a more offensive midfield option. But I've watched a lot of Inter Miami and I've watched a lot of Diego Gomez. So expect him to also do the dirty work. He will come back and defend. He's going to be a midfielder that's going to fight for the ball, win the ball. And don't be surprised if he gets a few goals as well by the end of the season, because, yeah, very exciting talent. I speak to Robert Rojas, the Paraguayan reporter, and he was in my inbox saying Diego Gomez is definitely coming to Brighton. He's definitely coming. And I was like, when's he going to sign? I was so excited when we signed him. So, yeah, big things.
Definitely so. It was very clear early on that Manchester United were to be got at. I think, Geordie, we had our first chance within the opening minutes where Joao Pedro went close and Onana, sort of parried it against Welbeck and it went behind. So there were early signs, even before we scored the first goal, that Manchester United were susceptible at the back, that we could get to them.
Yeah, totally right. This team, when you saw them, the feeling that you have, it's like it's a team that has lots of doubts. And I remember on the first row when we won 2-1 at home with the latest on Joao Pedro, that I also was here in the podcast. The feeling of United was different, despite they lose. Possibly they were more confident on the idea. Now it's a team that when it starts wrong, start to have that. So yeah, the feeling of not being comfortable, totally right. And finally, we will talk later, no, but the third goal represents for me 100% that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you say, we'll talk about it a bit later. But Onana, I think, is a very wobbly goalkeeper. So, definitely easy to get at him. And that ball, when he parried it, it could have gone anywhere. It was lucky for him. It went behind for a goal kick. But as I say, the signs there were there, Joe, early on, that Manchester United, they look frail. The ball was on into the channels, throughout the game. And in the first 5 minutes, we made it count twice. The second time was obviously an early goal. It was very direct. We're so used to seeing Brighton play the more tiki-taka style of football. I say tiki-taka as if we're like Barcelona, but you know what I mean. We pass the ball around. We progress the ball from the back to the front. But it was very direct, the way in which we scored our first goal. It was a lovely long ball from Baleba. in behind the Manchester United defence that Mitoma latched onto. And then he unselfishly sort of squares it to Yankuba Minte, who has the simplest of jobs of tapping in at the back post. And 5 minutes into the game, Brighton are 1-0 up.
Yeah, dream start. I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter about maybe dream starts are quite scary sometimes because, can you score too early in football? I think is something that Brighton fans, we don't like to rest on our laurels, and it's very much the hope that kills you. But yeah, brilliant by Baleba to look up and see that space. As Geordie mentioned, the gaps in behind the Manchester United defence were, ridiculous. And it's definitely a team that I don't even know if you can call them a team in transition because they're just, it really looks like, again, they've gone backwards. And I think Amorim is a fantastic coach. I think there's no denying that, what he'd done with Sporting, some of the games he coached there, the way he built his team. Obviously, he had Victor Gyökeres as well, who scored a lot of goals for him. So I think if he has time to build something, then Manchester United will become a force again. But at the moment, so many gaps. And Mitoma and Minter, I mean, you want players to run and be decisive in front of a goal. I think you've got two players that are going to do that. So yeah, dangerous pairing for sure.
Yeah, and they just give us so much attacking width as well. And I still think there's question marks about Minter's decision making. And sometimes I feel like he hasn't got a picture in his mind about where he's going. There was a moment today, I can't remember if it was in the first half or second half, and he literally just dribbled the ball out of play. I was sat there going, like, what are you doing, man? But no, he's really effective, Yankuba Minte, and obviously him and Mitoma traded goals and assists today, which is a nice little touch. But we'll obviously talk more a little bit about that later. What I found, I mean, Geordie, first of all, what did you make of the goal? Really nice goal, really nice run in behind from Mitoma, and really unselfish to not go for the shot and just give Minte the easiest of jobs.
You're totally right. The first, the pass, I think it's from Baleba, no? It's unbelievable. And then with, good solve the 3-against-2 they had, but with positional advantage they have. So pretty amazing on this side. One of the things that I value most, not of the goal, but from my side, Minte, for me, remembers a little bit saving the distances with Vinicius, that when he started, has worse decision making, and he uses a lot. He's so quick. So he's this kind of player, like he has some things, but he needs to improve this kind of decision making, because he's someone that it's super value to run at the space, obviously, and generates so many advantages. So he has the opportunity to decide good, as he has done in the ending the first action on the goal, and also putting the center in the second ball. So I thought he was also the player of the match, today. So well deserved to him. Credit to him. He needed this kind of match, I think.
Yeah, he did, Geordie, and I think I also wanted to, because it will slip out of my brain. I also thought he put in a really good performance defensively as well.
Totally.
Came back, won balls. I think there was a moment where Baleba gave the ball away, and he was there, bam, and he stopped a Manchester United counter-attack.
Yeah, the way he do with the two legs that he fall down and try to recover. I totally agree on you. And the second thing to add here is, today is a day to highlight the defensive performance both from Minte and Mitoma. For me, both of them were outstanding today. The defensive performance for me was unbelievable, because I remember also onto Diallo on the 82 or 86 minute, also Mitoma was defending this kind of action, and in the first and during the first 60 minutes also Minte were super active, so credit to them.
Yeah, very much so. And I think when Minte came off, he was probably absolutely exhausted. But as you say, Geordie, it's a performance that I think he needed to, So no, very, very strong performance from Yankuba Minte there. But Joe, I think what frustrated me, and I don't want to nitpick because it was a really good performance, but I suppose what frustrated me today was that after we scored, we sort of took our foot off the gas a little bit. And of course, I know it's at Old Trafford. Manchester United are going to have their tails up. But all the good work we had done in the first 10 minutes or so of like finding the space in the channels for Mitoma to run onto, we stopped doing that and we sort of went more central where it was all very crowded, very congested. We gave the ball away. There was this awful moment where Baleba starts doing like, I think it was you, Joe said, he was doing like keepy ups in the middle of the park. And you're like, mate, we're 15 minutes into this game. What are you doing? And it all got a bit ragged for my liking. And it was that pressure that Manchester United created that obviously led to the events that led to the penalty. In my opinion, well, I say my opinion, there's no doubt about it. The penalty was spot on, 100%. Baleba can't be doing that. But for me, Bart has to kick that long. You know, we're under the cosh. You know, Manchester United's press is really aggressive. So there's potential space behind, you know, to get the ball over. But Bart's poor pass out from the back is intercepted. And then Baleba, I would say clumsy. It's not clumsy. He gets the man in the headlock. But no, it was all a bit of a, you know, we were at 6s and 7s defensively, weren't we?
Yeah, it's one of those things that's going to come with experience. I think if Bart finds himself in a situation like that again, he would be more inclined to go long or to, you know, find another option. But of course, it comes with the way that we want to play, and that's something that Dunkey mentioned after the game. Is that, you know, if we want to play this way, these things are going to happen. And it's just all a case of learning with a very young team, a very young goalkeeper who I can't believe people are trying to write Bart Verbruggen off and saying he's not good enough because he kept us in the game at Portman Road a few days ago. So people have very short memories. So, yeah, just really frustrating. Obviously, I think Man United made their pressure tell a little bit and we got a bit flustered. And I think it's going to come with time that we start to string these performances together with a little bit more sort of oomph, just to, you know, when we go 1-0 up, to try and find a second and not rest on our laurels a little bit. And yeah, it's all a process, and I'm sure people are bored of me saying that. Something that I'm trying to tell myself more than anything is because I've been really frustrated at moments this season, for sure. So I'm trying to bring that level of calm to my mind. So if I tell myself it's all a process and it will work out fine and dandy, and you know, this was the perfect game that showed me that if you're patient, if you stay in the game, you can come out in the second half and be a completely different team, play football with intensity, challenge the establishment, all of these things that the manager says he wants to do. To see it happen in front of your eyes just gives you that level of calm that we are going in the right direction. Even though there's been some real, you know, bad teething issues at some point this season, we'll get there for sure.
Yeah, of course, as you say, it's a process, and I think, you know, we're in a similar sort of position-ish, kind of, maybe, to Manchester United. You know, they've brought in a new coach that wants to play a system. Fabian has perhaps been a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Maybe a bit more realistic, and he's adapted his plans to the squad he's got at his disposal, whereas Amorim has very much gone, this is my system and I'm going to play it, even if I don't necessarily have the players to do that. So I think, you know, Herzler has to be credited for that. But Geordie, there's been times this season where Brighton haven't particularly managed games well. We've scored and then we've conceded quite quickly afterwards. Just to get your take on that, do you think, as a club, that's because of the young squad we have, and it's just something that will come with time? Oh, Geordie, you're muted, my friend.
No, yeah, sorry. But yeah. We need to think on this aspect. Today, while it was the match, they were commenting a little bit on that Fergie, for example, in United, he has like 2-3 years to put all the bases. The results were not the best, and finally he was like the best coach in whole Premier history. No, so yeah, we are asking like with a team that half of the team is pretty new, to get results so quick, and it's so difficult. Also, new coach, new, and in a context that you need to compete so high. We need to remember, like, I don't know, but Arsenal with Arteta, they were not. Why they are having good results? Because they give it time. For me, the best example as a Spanish is Andoni Iraola in Bournemouth. You are seeing it starts losing a lot, and how they are playing with all the injuries they have. So in projects, you need to give time. So yeah. Despite on that, possibly we are conceding quick. Yeah, we are getting difficulties to manage results, but I think this Brighton, it's more adaptable to the context. So these kind of things, it's better because it's like teams like Everton or these kind of teams that were so different, so difficult to manage, or the at dead balls with United, we were suffering less than other years, but we could not compare with the Brighton team that goes into the Europa League. We just need to think where are both midfielders, one in Chelsea and one in Liverpool, and top players. So yes, it needs time. Possibly we can get in some results a little better results, and we have like so many matches being drawing the matches, but yeah, now we are there, both good results, and yeah, it's time to continue.
Definitely. I think, yeah, it was nice to see today as well. And perhaps it was because of the time that Manchester United did score. We actually looked more settled after they scored, if that makes sense. I thought we sort of sat back a little bit after they scored, and it sort of made us sort of like sit up and go, okay, we're back in it. The only thing that annoyed me slightly is the last 5 penalties Bruno Fernandes has taken have all gone the same way. So why Bart didn't dive that way is a bit beyond me. But because obviously these guys, they do their homework, and I know that is it Pickford? He's got it on his water bottle. Which ways the players dive. So I'm sure that the goalkeeping coaching staff would have been like, right, Fernandes is the taker. His last 5 penalties have been this way, go that way. But hey ho, I am nitpicking. I know I'm nitpicking, but yeah, that was one thing I was sort of like, so yeah, it was it settled us down a bit. It was a bit like a sandwich, the first half. We started really well, then it went a bit, and then as the half wore on, you know, we sort of got back into the ascendancy a little bit, because we knew that Manchester United wouldn't be able to keep that pressure up for the entire game. We almost a bit like we did against Ipswich. We had to ride that wave, and we went into halftime, you know, 1-1, which is fine. And then we came out the second half, and similar to the Ipswich game, we came out and we were really strong. Really strong. We had the ball in the back of the net 3 times in the second half. Of course, one of those was discounted, Joe, thanks to VAR. Now, when we had the group chat, when I first saw it, I was a bit sort of like, nah, that's never a foul. I've sort of changed my mind a little bit on that. But let's just talk about it. So we get a free kick. Ayari takes it and falls over. There's a complete melee in the penalty area. The ball falls to Pedro, who finishes it really nicely. It was a beauty of a finish. So I felt bad for him on that alone. It wasn't given. But VAR were checking because Dallo had gone down very theatrically, which also sort of made me think, oh, soft. But he got kicked by Van Hecker. A clash of feet. Now, I think part of the reason I've changed my tune a little bit is because a few weeks ago when we played Arsenal, I said it was definitely a penalty because Saliba headbutts him. So I'd feel a bit hypocritical if I said that, a clash of feet wasn't a foul. What was your view on it? And just, I know it doesn't count, but tell us about that finish, Joe, because it was very nice.
Yeah, Stonewall penalty. You can't kick the bottom of someone's foot and expect to get away with it, especially with VAR. I mean, I know Van Heck is going for the ball, but yeah, mistimed and just one of those frustrating things that, as you say, if that Saliba headbutt is an attempt to go for the ball and it hits Pedro and this is a foot, then we always cry for consistency, and at least that is consistent, so you can't grumble. The finish, I mean, the turn for me is the best part. The way he sort of rolls off the back of two defenders and finds a space to drill the ball sort of low under Onana. It was just, that's what Joao Pedro can do. He can find space. He can work his magic to get a chance, and he 9 times out of 10 finishes them with aplomb. I mean, I don't think Pedro's got that sort of tendency to miss many opportunities. I think he did sort of earlier in his Brighton career where there was moments where you think, you need to be finishing that. But I mean, what he is now, he's just in that position, especially where that pressure's a little bit off of him. He's not the leading striker. He can just, relax, play his game. And it's like what Dagan says. He wants to believe that he's the best man on the pitch, and it's the world against Joao Pedro, and he thrives on that. Gutted, obviously, that the goal isn't given, because I think it would have done his confidence the world of good. Obviously, could have scored against Ipswich, not for a fine save from Christian Morton. So yeah, good to see that he's getting those opportunities and finishing them well, even if VAR are going to spoil his party.
Very true. And I think it's also worth mentioning, Joe, I think you're spot on. Pedro looked a lot more comfortable today in that second striker role rather than sort of the main man. Having Welbeck back was definitely something that sort of Joao Pedro could come a little bit deeper to receive the ball. He could find those half spaces, and that starts then to drag the Manchester United defense about a bit, because do they close him down, which leaves space in behind? So I really like Joao Pedro and that sort of like false nine, because when he plays alongside Welbeck as well, it just creates space, and they create space for one another. So I think Welbeck is so important to the way we play. When he's injured, we really do notice it. But then when he comes back, and then, Welbeck doesn't even have to score sometimes, and you can feel his presence on the pitch. Now, Geordie, before we talk about the actual second goal, I just want to give a quick mention here, because we haven't mentioned him yet much, is Yassin Ayari. So the young Swedish midfielder, I think he's 21, 22. Him and Carlos Baleba have formed a really fantastic partnership in the middle, and I think Baleba certainly was at fault for the penalty, and I think he gave the ball away a few times in the first half, but the second half, Baleba and Ayari seemed very much in control of the midfield. What did you make of Yassin Ayari's performance today?
Yassin Ayari's performance, I am pretty surprised with this guy. He went to Coventry, I think, no? We didn't know how good he was. Possibly, we started the season, we should remember, like, we were expecting, I don't know if it started, but previously good players such as Gross, such as Billy Gilmour in the midfield, also Baleba some days with the red card, and he arrives in the midfield because I remember also that the new signings that we have were also injured. Also Kadioglu, also was the one signing from Celtic that we were talking today that he was not available. Yeah, O'Reilly. So possibly he was lucky to start the first days, but he has demonstrated that he is so capable to do that. He defends a lot. Possibly it's not it's not a 10 in nothing, but it's a 8 in lots of things. And for me, one of the things that summarize perfectly his performance is, because I don't want to arrive there, but it's the pass of the third goal. Because when he started the action, how he drove the ball, despite it's a pretty lucky center that it doesn't arrive on the position that we want. The person that starts the action is Yassin Ayari. So yeah. Also, he was pretty good defending, tackling some actions in the 94, 95. I don't know. Before starting the season, I would thought, okay, Enciso would be a key player. Ayari, I don't know, it would be a player that would not play so much. And then arrives the season, and it's 180 degrees different, the reality.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I remember when he came on against Everton, and we thought he'd scored, albeit for a VAR check to rule it off. But no, he's one of those players that I think we talk about most weeks now on Albion Obsessed, and just keeps impressing. Yes, he's, as you say, Jordy, he's not putting in 10 out of 10 performances every week, but he's putting in solid performances, and he's getting better and better. And that partnership with Baleba is bearing some real good fruit. So long may it continue. As you say, Jordy, very instrumental in some of the goals that we're about to talk about. Don't forget, guys, we are, well, I say don't forget as if you would forget. We are live, so keep putting in your comments. We are starring some questions, guys, so we will be discussing those at the end of the show. So if you are putting questions in, because I've got a couple starred now, don't worry if we're not responding to them straight away, because I'm going to bring them back at the end. So keep getting your questions in, be it about transfers, be it about players. We've just had one from Posy about Hinchelwood. And again, we will chat about these towards the end of the show. So keep them coming in, as well as your comments as well. So let's talk about the second goal then, Joe. Again, that man, Yassin Ayari, is at the heart of it. He's driving through the middle. And I do think we've got to give some credit to the referee here, because Yassin Ayari is fouled, but the ref waves play on. Now, a lot of refs have that tendency to blow the whistle early, so, advantage can't be played, but the ref gives it correctly. And then Minte becomes provider as he swings in across to the far post. And who's there to tuck it away? But Mitoma, who now breaks Shinji Okazaki's record set at Leicester. We were just talking about that record just the other day, Joe, and he's only gone and broken it in the next game. Mitoma and Minte today, a goal each, an assist each. Very good from both of them. But no, great cross, great run from Ayari, and a great, lovely finish from Mitoma. That's the second time we've seen him do something like that this season, Joe. That sort of boot high in the air just to have a little toe tap in. Lovely stuff.
Yeah, but don't raise your boot anymore, because VAR will get involved and say it's a high boot. So just relax, Carew. Just relax. I mean, we said it as much on the last podcast about Carew and how influential he's been over the last few years for Brighton. And I mean, yeah, look at that beautiful T-shirt. Audio listeners, go to YouTube and see Tom's T-shirt. It's beautiful. He's easily one of the best players I've ever seen pull on a Brighton shirt, 100%. The way he chucks himself at crosses, doesn't always get on the end of them, but it pays off when he finds his studs on the end of that cross from Yankuba. Under a lot of pressure from Mazraoui as well. He could have easily pulled out of that, but he thought no. And then Mazraoui folded around the post, which looked relatively uncomfortable, that's for sure. The best thing about the goal, though, is that not the fact that Ayari goes down hurt, the fact that Joel Veltman runs over to him when the ball goes into the back of the net, taps on his shoulder and goes, "We've just scored, mate," and get up. I just love that. So yeah, brilliant cross. And the roles are reversed. Minte gets an assist from Mitoma. Mitoma gets an assist from Minte. So yeah, beautiful to see our wingers providing all sorts of goal involvement. So yeah, brilliant. And yeah, Ayari, I mean, I've been his harshest critic and probably focus on the negatives more than the positives he brings to the team. But he's been involved in a lot of, goal actions over the last couple of games for sure. So he's only improving. And again, reminded that he's only young. So yeah, great to see.
I think with the thing with Yassin Ayari as well is, he's really taking that opportunity while players are out. As Geordie says, you got Matt O'Reilly, been quite injury prone so far since he's joined us. Hinchelwood obviously been out as well. Vifer also injured. So Yassin's really got this is his opportunity to step up and be like, I deserve this spot. And I think the fact that Herzler has played him even when other players have been fit, like Vifer and O'Reilly, I think that says a lot in terms of what Herzler thinks Yassin brings to the side, and his belief in this young player. And I could wax lyrical about him sometimes, because I genuinely think sometimes I watch Yassin Ayari play and I think, blimey, he's so good. And then other times I've got my head in my hands thinking, what are you doing? So yeah, he's young, and that inconsistency will change. Geordie, just quickly on the second goal then, Mitoma, he has been brilliant since joining us from the J League. He had to bide his time a little bit, had to go out on loan at USG in Belgium, then came in, wasn't really playing under Graham Potter in the early days, but he's sort of made that left midfield position his own, and he crops up with another important goal today.
Yeah, today I was remembering a little bit on Joe, because one of the best players that we have had, like Pascal Gross, was the one that always scored against United. And now the one that always is starting to have lovely matches against United is Mitoma. He gives his best always, and yeah, huge credit to him. I remember was starting being the substitute of Trossard, but now he is one of the main wingers of the league, if not the best. And obviously we talk about football and about the performance, but for me another thing that we need to value is huge credit to Tony Bloom on the aspect on, we should remember this guy, it's a huge exposure for Brighton in Japan and in all these countries that are in Asia. So I think it does not reflect only the good performances on the pitch, also it reflects the good management that we have on the HQ offices in Brighton that leads Tony Bloom and Paul Barber. For me, this deserves a lot. And also the highlight that you made with Okazaki, I only want to add, today in the statistics they were telling, Brighton is the team that has the better ratio in all history, winning Manchester United. That was 50% of the time. So it's huge credit to Brighton last years on our direct matches.
Yeah, it's very true. I think you've paid credit there, Geordie, to the HQ there and the scouting team, because I think what Brighton have really excelled at in the last couple of years is going into those markets for players across Europe, in some of the leagues that perhaps many other teams aren't fishing in terms of the Premier League, into South America and also into Asia as well. And it has really sort of catapulted Brighton's sort of, I don't want to say brand, because that sounds really corporate, but by getting into the Japanese market, and going to Japan pre-season, I think that was a really shrewd bit of business. And Mitoma has been just electric for us. And today, popping up with another goal, breaking that record. Yeah, excellent stuff. But it wasn't quite over. I mean, I'm never comfortable when I'm as a Brighton fan. I'm never comfortable when we're winning unless we're a few goals to the good. And I got my wish. I mean, we've already sort of alluded to it a little bit. because of just the howler from Onana and Yassin's involvement again. Yassin Ayari plays in a really nice low cross. As you said, Geordie, Rutter didn't quite get on the end of the cross, but what I do as a youth coach is I scream. I don't scream at my kids at all. I don't do that. But you teach kids to follow the ball in, because you never know what's going to happen. And with a goalkeeper like Onana, I think spilling the ball is a safe bet. It's an absolute howler from the Manchester United keeper. Really awful handling error. But Rutter, easiest job in the world, tapping it into an empty net. His 4th goal in 3 games, Joe. I've said it in our group chat, and I've said it on the podcast before. Jorginho he's just such an endearing character, and seeing him on the score sheet today, we've got a little clip of him for the audio listeners on our little graphics here. He's doing really well at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, what player, what man. The personality just shows. I loved it at the end that the cameras sort of panned to Jorginho, showing Diego Gomez what to do after a win with the Olays to the fans, and just seems to be that guy that, new players, old players can lean on him for a bit of positivity from time to time. And I don't think he's going to be a guy that gets too down when things aren't going his way. So it's so important to have personalities like that in the dressing room, for sure. As much as we talk about young talent, exciting talent, experienced heads, to have someone like Jorginho who is just going to be the life of the party, then yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, that Onana screw up was probably one of the funniest things. The funniest thing was Mark Goldbridge's reaction. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure it's on Twitter somewhere. Go and find it. But literally before Onana drops it, he goes, you know what? If we get another goal, we could well be back into this game. And then literally a second later, we score. And it's one of the best fan reactions I've ever seen in my life. And I just, I love it. I love compiling their misery. I love seeing them get so awfully entitled. The fact that they should be beating Brighton, even though they haven't beaten them for God knows how long. The fact that we've won there 3 times in a row. Old Trafford is very much our playground. So yeah, Jorginho, he started the playing very, very early.
Yeah, he's just such a bloke, is Jorginho Rutter, and I'm really happy that sort of I'm sure it's not even on his mind, but obviously when we bought him in for £40 million, and there was a lot of question marks about spending that money on a championship player. I'd like to think he's put a lot of those doubters, their questions to bed now. He's been brilliant. His link-up play, his goals, absolutely fantastic, really fantastic. And sometimes, you just got to do the basics, as I say, follow the crossing. And Geordie, it was you talked about the ball in from Yari, which was really nice, even though it didn't find the intended player. But Onana there, we moan about Bart Verbruggen sometimes, being a bit casual with the ball at his feet, but in terms of goalkeeper errors, that's a big one.
Yeah. In this case, it's like wall justice, because a few minutes ago, if VAR acts how it needs to act, for me, this is stupid, but this is a clear penalty, what he has done into Van Heck. Stupid action, and that's all. So at 5 minutes later, he was doing one of the main errors he has. I don't want to make an error. I remember him from here, because possibly I make an error, but Onana a few years ago, Onana was here in Barcelona Academy, yes, not? A few years ago, like when he was a kid. And all the reports that highlight to him were like, he's an outstanding goalkeeper, but he has in 3, 4, 5 times of the year he gets in the picture. So yeah, it's this kind of goalkeeper that can make you outstanding saves that you don't expect, but then one regular ball has he gets in the image. So yeah, this kind of errors you could not concede, and yes, but if one player such as Casemiro is also having this context, one professional person and surrounded by all of them, or like Lisandro Martinez, these kind of players, others that possibly has less character are dipped on this context.
Yeah, it's Onana. I suppose what I did find interesting, Joe, is you talked about Mark Goldbridge there. I watched a little bit of because I hadn't seen the clip, and he was talking about Onana and how they replaced David De Gea with Onana. Obviously, David De Gea, an exceptional shot stopper, but the idea that Manchester United needed to bring in someone with his feet, good with his feet, as I say. But yeah, it's for me, goalkeeper should be doing a lot better there. But as you say, Geordie, it felt like a bit of cosmic justice, really. But as I say, so I won't wax too lyrical about Onana's, poor misfortune, I should say. So there you go. The game ended, Joe, 3-1. Happy with that performance. As I say, another game where we see a second half really, really strong to sort of counteract the iffy sides of the first half. I mean, one of the earliest comments we had today from Loudmouth Football, you were better than United, but not anywhere near the usual standards that you've set for yourself. Everyone going forward had issues, barring Ayari. How did you see it? So do you think that's a fair comment, Joe? Do you think it was not up to our normal standards? Because for me, it was very much in keeping with what we've seen. Sort of an inconsistent performance across a 90, but enough to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, Fabian Hertz spoke about the fine margins and doing what you needed to do to win games. And the interviewer asked him about, is that the performance that tells you should be winning more games? I'm not sure if I wholeheartedly agree with Fabian Hertzer in saying that those performances have been there, because I don't think we've been nearly that clinical in punishing opponents' mistakes and playing football with intensity, as he says he likes to. In terms of the expectation, I think it's an expectation that's been set by the board and by the fans ever since getting into Europe and the brand of football that Brighton want to play. We want to play attractive, nice to watch football. But at times this season, we haven't been able to do that because we've either been having to win ugly, like we did at Newcastle. We've given up 2-goal leads. So even when we scored the third goal, I wasn't overly convinced that we would come on to win the game. But maybe that says more about me than it does anything else.
I don't know, Joe. I think, to be fair to you, when that board went up for 8 minutes extra time, and you are right, Posy, they only did have one shot on target all game. But considering we'd given up a 2-0 lead against Wolves and against Leicester, I think you're justified in feeling a little bit nervous.
Thank you. But yeah, I think those nerves, soon sort of petered out when you can see just how useless Man United were being. Whether that flattered us or not, I don't know. But we had to play well in that second half to get that result, and that's what we did. And to be honest, it could have been more. So in terms of the expectation, I think we're there or thereabouts with what we can expect from Fabian Hertzer and his team. But I think the expectations of being better than that just come from the fact that we've achieved European football and we want to get back there. And I think we're slowly rolling towards the fact that it looks like we do have a manager that could get us back there. We're only 2 points off Europa Conference League now. So we're in the mix. We're in there.
Yeah, we certainly are. There's a saying, I don't know if you know if it is a saying, it's the thing I say. You don't have to be faster than the polar bear. You just have to be faster than your friend. So for me, today, we didn't have to be world beaters. We just had to be better than Manchester United and score more goals than they did. And we did. So I'm okay with that. The performances have been decent, Michael. There's just been a mistake in our defense every game. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And again, that could be down to the age of the squad. We do have a very young squad. I think the average age is something like 24. So it's a young squad. They're gonna make mistakes. They're humans. Even elite footballers make mistakes. And I think it's just about learning from your mistakes, which is perhaps why I was so harsh on Verbruggen, considering what we saw against Fulham. Yeah, Fulham, when he passed the ball out. And I get it's how we play, and I get that's how we've played ever since Graham Potter and De Zerbi. So I do understand, but I think it's just about having that adaptability to go, right, we're under the cosh a little bit. I'm going to go long. So yeah. Geordie, if you had to pick a player out for today that you spotted that you thought did really, really well, who would you pick?
I will. I will pick Yankuba. Ayari and Yankuba, for me, I have the doubt between both of them. Ayari, because huge credit, he's improving a lot, but Yankuba, he needs this kind of match. And I think when you have this kind of rivals that you can run on their back, Yankuba is one of them. But I want to value that minimum on this match, he take better decisions than on previous matches.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Decision making has been something somewhat iffy with Minter, but today, brilliant. Brilliant. So yeah, a good choice there, Geordie. So Joe, you can't pick out Yankuba Minte because Geordie's already claimed him. Who would you pick, Joe, as a player that stood out to you today, for good or bad? I don't think we could really pick out anyone for being too bad today. So it would be a bit harsh of you, Joe, to do that.
Do you know what? I'm going to pick our captain, Lewis Dunk. Because for all the bad stuff that's happened this season, not even bad stuff, just below expectation of what we expect from Lewis Dunk, he's set the bar so high over the last few seasons. So anything that falls below that, we're going to go, why is our captain not doing this at 33, 34 years of age? How dare he drop off? But to be honest, I thought he was more than good value for starting today, earning that. I wouldn't say earning the spot back, but I think he's probably done enough to be in fans' minds to be starting against Everton if he can perform like that. So, yeah, brilliant from the captain to come back in. I wouldn't say a tough place to go, but against Manchester United. And it's just great that we're finally picking up points against these relegation threatened sides, to be honest, Tom. So yeah, really, really good stuff.
Shots fired. No, a fine pick indeed. And as I said at the top of the show, hindsight's a wonderful thing. At the time, I was miffed, but I think we had a good game. So that was a really encouraging sign. For me, I'm gonna pick out Baleba, and the reason I'm going to pick out Baleba was because I think in the last game, I think was it you, Joe? I think you might have picked Baleba as your player to stand out, or it might have been Dagan. Dagan was talking about how Baleba's like the MVP, and I totally get it. I think Baleba is brilliant, but I'm going to sort of go 50-50 with Baleba because I thought in the first half he was pretty poor. Not well, I say pretty poor. Again, that sounds really harsh. He put in obviously the ball for the first goal, so kudos to that. Excellent ball. With Baleba, I don't know if it's a lack of concentration or if he just finds it all a bit too easy. There was just times in the first half he played himself into trouble, played the team into trouble, and obviously gave away the penalty. However, to come out in the second half and put all that behind you and then play as solidly as he did while on a yellow card, I thought was really commendable. So for me, it's the fact that he made those mistakes, made those errors, but there was no point did his head drop. At no point did he sort of play within himself, and I think that's something that is worth mentioning. A player that we normally mention quite a lot, and today perhaps I have certainly mentioned him in a more negative light than I usually do. So I just want to give him that sort of nod and say, yeah, he still did well. Posy says we don't need Pascal against Man U. I'd still take him back though. Yeah, me too. I don't think anyone would begrudge Pascal Gross coming back. We love Pascal, although again, I don't begrudge him playing in front of the yellow wall whatsoever as a childhood Dortmund fan. So as we reach the end of the pod, as promised, I've been starring messages and questions throughout. Joe, you've got your hand up. I didn't realize that was a question. I thought you were raising the roof for our Pascal. Fire away.
So our stat correspondent Dagan isn't on the podcast, as you can see. He took his kid to play in a game, so good luck, Kennedy. He has just found a Manchester United shirt framed, and there he is taking a picture, very, very happy in front of the Man United shirt. Well done, Dagan. Very, very good. I like it.
Very nice, Dagan.
Sorry.
Just before we go on to the questions, I should note, obviously, with that win, we're back up into 9th in the Premier League table. We're 2 points behind Villa, I think it is, and who are in 7th. And then Newcastle, we're 4 points behind them, and they're currently in 4th. So we're very much back amongst the mix. I think the biggest dark horses for Europe are currently Bournemouth. I think they're in a brilliant run of form. So they're going to be a team to watch. But no, let's go on to some of these questions then that we've had throughout. Keep them coming in. If there's anything you'd like us to discuss, we will chat about it. So the first one we had was from Eternal Me, which is Veltman. Is he in contention from our player of the season? It's a player we haven't actually mentioned today, Joe. Veltman again today just went about his business. Excellent. There were times when he was in acres of space down the right. Perhaps doesn't have that attacking flair of a Tariq Lamptey, but he is just so good. I
think he's definitely in contention for the Lewis Dunk Award, which is the Players' Player of the Season. So I think he's one of those players that his teammates are going to recognise the hard yards he does for his teammates around him, and the statistics of us having Joel Veltman in our starting 11 as opposed to not are there for all to see. I mean, it's just so good to have someone like him that's going to just be an out-and-out defender when he needs to be, can create a little bit going forwards as well. Going to do the dark arts to get you a point or 2 or 3. So yeah, it's brilliant. And I think he could be in contention for fans' player of the season. A lot of people are mentioning him this year and just starting to realise just how much of a bargain we got with Joel Veltman. Signing him for under £1 million, which in football terms is ridiculous for a player of his output. So yeah, definitely in contention for sure.
Part of me hopes that he isn't the player of the season, simply because over the last few seasons, whenever we've had a player of the season, they've been sold.
True. All right, okay. Gully is the player of the season because
we can sell Gully. Yeah, as Posy just said, we should have a player of the season. They always disappear. So yeah, for me, yeah, definitely up there. Obviously, halfway through the season, kind of, sort of ish. So a lot of football still to be played. A lot of questions and chats about the transfer window, which I'll come on to in just a moment. But I just want to talk about Jack Hinchelwood, Geordie. One of the questions we had was, will Hinchelwood get back into the side when he's fit? We've talked about Baleba and Ayari today and the partnership they're forming. When Hinchelwood is fit, do you see him getting back into the side?
If I based on the performances, apart from Baleba and Ayari, I think that O'Reilly and Hinchelwood can fix them. For the one that I have more doubts is for Weaver. He needs to improve his level, I think, because these other 4 for me now are demonstrating more than him, and The good thing on Hinshelwood is like also he can be a valuable option in the left back or right back if we need. So he is the kind of player that in one moment or another will join the starting 11.
Yeah, I mean Hinshelwood, we call him the hinch pin, or Phil does in the group chat. Such an important player for us. Really versatile, great at right back as well. If Veltman stays fit and keeps putting in performances like he has been, it's going to be a difficult one for him to come back into. Let's talk about the transfer window then. We've obviously it's January, so of course we have been discussing it a lot. There hasn't been a huge amount of movement. We've had rumblings of certain players potentially leaving. A few rumours about potential ins. I think there's been a couple of centre backs we've been linked to. One of them ended up going to Manchester City, which was disappointing from our perspective. But we've also been linked to Chelsea's Tosin Adarabioyo, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Apologies if that's incorrect. Who I believe they only got from Fulham in the summer. So, Joe, I mean, we've spoken on the pod about needing that defensive depth. Do you think the lad from Chelsea is a good fit? We've also been sort of tenuously linked with maybe bringing back Tomori as well, who's obviously playing over in Italy. With Webster back, with Dunk back, with Tony Bloom famously not liking January, and it being the 19th. Do you think we'll be doing any business at the back?
Hey. Oh, for goodness sake. I'm sorry, I'm gone. I am completely gone. That is ridiculous. It's very unlikely. That's for sure. God, compose yourself, Joe. Come on. That is too funny. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry, Tom.
You mute up, Joe. I'll take it from here. Geordie, what do you think that the club need to bring in the transfer window? Are there any positions or any personnel you think match the sort of the profile of what the club needs at the moment?
Yeah, for me it's one center back. What we could need, because it's like, and pretty much that's all. Obviously, if you have a huge guarantee, we could consider, but we need to consider also like Diego Gomez. We are considering like also a signing of January in midfield. So in midfield, I don't expect more because there are a lot. And also we need to consider that we had other that are not fit. So yeah. And on the front, obviously, we would love to have a striker that has more goals, but in this kind of season and now at this moment, Tony Bloom knows, like in winter market, if you want to spend something, you need to spend more, because it's if you have needs. If you have a huge opportunity in the market and you can use it, he will use it for sure. But he would not be afraid. The thing that I'm more afraid here in Spain, that they are talking a lot, it's like the loan of Julio Enciso here to Valencia, that it's talking a little bit on. I understand, because the new coach of Valencia is Corbaran, that was in West Brom, and obviously he knows a lot of the English league, and this is why he's getting him a huge credit to this coach. But it will be a loss. But this is the man in Hustlers that I am thinking, oh, he needs to trust a little bit more. The two players that I had more expectation this season, and I am not getting, both players are Enciso and Ferguson. these two players, I had huge expectations, and I don't know why they are not having more opportunities.
I think there's a lot of people would agree with you, Geordie. I certainly do. For me, I think the Enciso deal depends on whether we can get him tied up to a new contract. There's a lot of rumblings about him not wanting to sign beyond his current year, which I think is 2026, which I totally understand because from his perspective, if he's not going to get game time here, he doesn't want to be tied into a contract which may put potential suitors off. I do want him to stay. I think he's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, it'll be interesting, that one, and Ferguson as well, who has of course been linked to West Ham. We have discussed both of those players at length, haven't we, Joe? It's nice to see you in the comments, Max. If you're still with us, yeah, maybe we can chat to you after we absolutely thrash you in the FA Cup and then thrash you again in the league. Yeah, Michael, Chris Wood doing a Jamie Vardy and striking Forest to the title. Yeah, Forest, brilliant run of form at the moment. Chris Wood, a player I have admired since he came in on loan from West Brom in our promotion season.
Tom, whilst we've got Max in the chat as well, I just want to put on my comment that I was going to say before you completely ruined what I was going to say by saying such an awful thing. You said something about Chelsea stockpiling young players. Could never be my club.
Yes. Yes, I had heard that. No, it'd be. I mean, obviously, I don't. For what it's worth, I mean, I'm not in the know in the slightest, but my 2 cents still remains the same. I think we need cover in defence, in the centre of defence. I think we need another striker. However, as Geordie has said, we know that the prices are going to be inflated at this time of year because it's January and people can charge more for players, which is why I always think that if we are going to sell players like Ferguson and Ciso, clubs will be mad to try and buy them now because it will cost them an arm and a leg. But also, Geordie is right. We've got to remember Gomez is a January signing because, yes, that transfer was rumbling on for months. But actually, yeah, he's a new player for January who's going to come and bolster our midfield. We know that probably means Jakob Moda is going to be departing, but such is the way of life. Thank you very much for your questions, guys. Just as we end the show then, guys, next up, we have Everton. They beat Spurs today. New manager bounce, David Moyes back at the club. Joe, we have quite a nice history against David Moyes, albeit when he was in charge of West Ham. How do you see the game going? Going to be a tough one.
Everton at the Amex. Alarm bells. Panic. Don't like it. Really don't like it. Yeah, and as you say, new manager bounce. Hopefully that is short-lived. I mean, Spurs are an absolute joke at the moment. I think a similar situation to United, really. They just can't seem to string a result together, and maybe isn't the result to look at is to think Everton might have turned a corner, but then they could clip me from saying this in a week's time because they've beaten us. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous going into it. I think the Amex recently hasn't been the best of places to look for a win. I don't think we've won there since November. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how we shape up, whether we can score some goals at the Amex as well. And hopefully we're on the back of a lovely extra 3 points and we can talk about another win, Tom. As you say, it's becoming a habit, so why not? Let's go there and do it. Go there and do it like we're traveling away. Shut up, Joe. Ugh.
There was, I mean, I mention this quite frequently at the moment. There was that time under Graham Potter where we used to treat home games like away games because we just couldn't win there at the moment. Maxwell, I see you comment there. I'll come back to you in just a second, my friend. Geordie, Everton, they won today against Spurs. As Joe says, Spurs are a bit all over the place at the moment. But still, I think that was only their 4th win of the season. So that will have them nice and confident before we play them next weekend. How do you feel like that may go?
in the case of Everton, I prefer that they arrive winning than losing, because against us always it's a mess. But to give some hope, I think the way we play with De Zerbi expose more us to Everton. The way that we play with Husler, that we adapt more into the rivalry. I'm not telling we are going to win, but what I'm pretty sure, it's like we are not, we would not receive nail 3 or nail 4 for sure. It will be a match competitive, and I hope, please, that it does not rain a lot, because every time that it rains a lot and it's Everton, it's more complicated for us in the Amex. That's all.
Yeah, Rain, Everton, Amex, not a good combination at all. Maxwell has asked, before you close, guys, what is the realistic expectations for your final finish in the Premier League this season? Will anything but Europe be a disappointment considering the money spent? I think last time we chatted about this question, Joe, was probably at the start of the season. And obviously a lot's happened since then. For me, my opinion would be, I didn't expect Europe at the start of this season, because in my head, and this sort of ties into what Michael's talking about with Amorim and Postecoglou, who goes first. Brighton are a patient club. We have been. I mean, yes, we have parted ways with managers. Obviously, Chrissy Houghton, we parted ways with him after having a disappointing second season in the Premier League. But with Graham Potter, for instance, we were very, very patient. His first few seasons with us were marred by being obviously XG champs, not being able to score for toffee. But the club stood by Potter, and rightfully so. So for me, I don't see a situation where Herzler has had up in front of the board for finishing, say, 10th. Even with the money spent, because you are right, Max, we have spent a lot of money. I think we were the top one of the top spenders in Europe, let alone the Premier League. But I also think that that's because this was a season where Tony Bloom not necessarily expected Europe, but knew that because of potential new regulations coming in, this might be an opportunity to spend and not have to worry too much about PSR, because we were in a good financial place, mainly Maxwell, thanks to your club. So I don't potentially see it as a failure. Would I be disappointed? It would depend on the run-in, I suppose. If with the, say, like 3 games to go, we're very much in the contention for Europe, and then we don't make it because of our own failings, I'd be disappointed. But with, we're battling with it with some really well-run clubs. The likes of Newcastle, Villa, Bournemouth, as I've already said, they're flying at the moment. And if I'm being brutally honest, I with like Spurs and Manchester United, where are they going to finish? That's going to be a big question. Michael, for me, I really like both of those coaches. I think Amorim's a really good coach, and I like Ange Postecoglou. I hope they stay around for the rest of the season. But I could see a possibility of one of them leaving, and then it depends on the bounce that happens. So there's so many variables. For me, I would be happy with a top 10. Anything outside of that, I'd be disappointed. So for me, Europe isn't a must. It would be an added bonus. But that's just my... Joe, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I like what you said about having to battle with a lot of teams that are doing well around us as well. I think that's something very much to take into consideration. Obviously, Forest are having an absolute dream of a season. They'll be fighting up for Europe 100%. So I think I'm very much in agreement with you that I don't think it would be a failure as such, but let's see how things go. It's very much circumstantial, as you say. Like if we're 8th on the final day and we need to win to get into Europe, and we don't, that'll be really, really annoying. But I think in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the fact that we've got a new manager in, we've got a lot of new young players in, even though we've spent a lot of money on those players, they need time to adapt to the Premier League.
And Joe, just really quickly, sorry to interrupt. In fact, all of those players have been injured at some point since we signed them.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot that Fabian Hertz has had to contend with. So I don't think it would be a huge failure. And as you say, I don't think he'll be having to answer to the board unless we go on some stupid, ridiculous losing streak and end up like fighting relegation. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to stick by him and go again next year. And I'm sure there'll be more players that we add. There'll be more money that we spend. As you say, we're in a very good financial position, even after spending all of that money. So yeah, it'll be interesting, but not a failure for me. And in terms of who goes first, Amorim or Postecoglou, statistics point towards Ange Postecoglou. I don't think they'd sack Amorim after a few months of being in post. So yeah, Postecoglou probably going to be the one to walk.
Harsh, but fair. Geordie, to end the show then, my friend, where do you see Brighton finishing? I mean, obviously, we're in the new year now. Still a lot of football to play. But for you, Geordie, what would mark a good season?
Yeah, when we started the season, Joe asked the same question. My answer was Brighton should finish this season 6th, because I hope, like English, we can have 5 clubs going to the Champions League, and I am the one that has expectations on the sanctions to Manchester City would be high. So the only thing that I would just want to remark, and this is my answer, is like now we are 9th. If Manchester City gets relegated or has a huge sanction that could not go to Europe, we would be 8th. So only in this situation, if you have 5 teams going to the Champions League, 2 in Europa League, and the 8 going to the Conference League, you can get it. But the thing is, like, 3 points above now, actually it's Bournemouth and Newcastle is 4. So I think if we get out of the FA Cup against Chelsea, that our only target would be the league. I need that this is a season to press as much as we can. And possibly it's not to be deceived, but once we get the points to continue in the league, that now I think we can consider with 1 or 2 wins more, we could consider watching the worst level that are having the ones that are on the bottom. It's time to give the best and try to achieve as much as you can arrive on high, because with the sanctions and the possibilities, I don't know, but you have Chelsea's playing a lot of competitions, Aston Villa playing a lot of competitions, Bournemouth with lots of injuries, and City possibly to get banned. And yeah, Forest is now there, but I don't know if in 10 matches they can change the life. You are in a good opportunity to get as high as you can.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice outlook, Geordie. And I think, let's hope the FA are harsh on City if they are found guilty of those breaches. I have my doubts, but also I think it's just worth mentioning really quickly. We've got a lot of players potentially returning from injury. We know Igor will be out for the rest of the season, so we know he can't come back, but there's still a lot of potential players returning from injury that could really help boost our run-in. Although I said that this time last year, and that never happened. So let's pray to all the gods, from Zeus to Odin.
In fairness, though, Tom, we're also dealing with a massive man baby in charge at that point.
Massive man baby who said, "Excuse me, I need some more players, please, because they're all injured and we're in Europe." And his answer was, "No."
Yeah, but he threw one a heck of a strop, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I mean, I threw a strop, but I wasn't the Brighton coach. So I imagine that did not go down well. But of course, we've talked about that to death. But anyway, thank you to Joe and Geordie for joining this evening. And thank you all to the live viewers as well. If you are catching us on the YouTube, post post live. Please don't forget to drop in your comments. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget, of course, to like, share, and subscribe to whichever platform you are listening, be it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, floppy disk, MP3, and all those other wonderful methods of technology. Oh, we should do an Albion Obsessed vinyl. That'd be sick. But anyway, thank you guys again for joining us all, and we will hope to see you again soon. So wherever you may be, whenever you may be, take it easy, and we'll catch you soon. Take care.